Am I a settler? How will a communist indigenous nationalism work? For time immemorial, indigenous peoples have lived on Turtle Island and have taken great care of the land and its ecosystem. There are over 200 indigenous nations in North America that were colonized by the many European nations. These original inhabitants have a right to self-determination. Many people assume when we say indigenous nationalism, they think of a dictatorship of indigenous people, and that they just want to kill all the settlers, which is just an enormously false statement. What is wanted is self-determination and self-governance of their nations. This does not imply the killing of settlers. If you stand against the indigenous people, however, that is your own choice, the wrong one, and you will be forced to step aside. The indigenous people are part of the proletariat, very observant, chauvinist, but it comes down to who has destroyed the lands and who owns the lands. The bourgeoisie settler class. We, as the settler proletariat, must stand with our indigenous proletarian comrades, not from a stance of a guilty conscience, but of a recognition that this is not our land and never has been. We are guests on this land, and to stand with the indigenous people, we will need to account for that. Their liberation and self-determination is the just thing to do. Returning to the topic of indigenous nationalism, it isn't about removing the settlers, it's about giving stewardship of the lands over to the original nations. To assume, as you chauvinists love to do, that productive and material forces will be diminished is false. The indigenous people may not be monolithic, but they have increasingly become cooperative with each other. One state with many nations is the way to go. Just as the Soviet Union had many nations under one state, or Bolivia becoming a plurinational state, giving the indigenous people more power. A union, if you will, of the many nations that existed here before colonization, as well as the many new nations made due to colonial displacement. You, as a settler, are probably saying to yourself, why should I want to join the indigenous peoples when the majority of people in North America are settlers as it is? Why shouldn't I be patriotic to my settler nation? Well, the first thing that needs to be done is to read this history of your nation, how it came about and why there were so many settlers here to begin with. Secondly, the USA, Canada, Mexico, Australia, New Zealand, and Israel are all settler states, whose very existence reigns on the very existence of settlers hating indigenous peoples and other minorities. If the settler proletariat stood with indigenous people, the bourgeoisie settlers know their little game is